Joining me today is Mr. Puneet Gupta, Director S&P Global Mobility. Mr. Gupta, thank you very much for joining us on Republic TV.
Yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure to be on the show.
Well, big bang reforms yesterday. The finance minister has announced plethora of changes in the GST rating, GST tax slabs. I just want to get started asking you what changes for the auto sector. For a common buyer, what has really changed between yesterday and today?
Yeah. So firstly, GST cut. So it's not just a tax tweak. So it is clearly the next generation reforms. This is something which will really reposition, the Indian auto industry. Because if we see, last decade, so there have been plethora of regulations which have come in, and primarily we have seen the cost going up. So clearly, industry has been going through, transformation, and clearly, industry as well as the consumer, both of them, needed the cars to be affordable. So clearly, a cut in GST is kind of an adrenaline shot, and will clearly boost the economy and the automotive industry in India.
Okay. If I have to ask you as a car or buyer, I mean, I'll start with car, then I'll come to the bikes part of it. If I have to ask you as a car buyer, what are the three things that I need to keep in mind between yesterday and today? And I mean, which are the which are the segments that I need to know that up to this segment, it is this much GST, up to this segment, this is this much GST. What is it that I need to keep in mind as a buyer?
Yeah. So firstly, just to do a relative comparison between yesterday and today. So yesterday there was just two slabs, 5% and 28% GST. And over and above, there was something called as CESS. So in case of small cars, primarily, it was 28%, 1% cess for gasoline and 3% for diesel. But broadly, in short, if I say 28% for small cars, but for bigger cars, there was a cess of additional 20%. So now there are three GST slabs. We have 5%, 18%, and 40%. So small cars, which were earlier in the bracket of 28%, have now been brought down to 18%. So clearly for small cars, where the definition is a car less than 4 meter, and gasoline engine less than 1.2 liter engine and diesel less than 1.5 liter engine, there is a clear cut GST cut of more than 10% or roughly 10%, right? In case of bigger cars, you don't have now something called as cess, but your GST slab has gone up from 28% to 40%, but still there will be a saving of 10%, for example, in vehicles like Scorpio, where ground clearance is more than 170 mm. So there will be a saving of 10%, because you don't have to pay cess now. So clearly, for the auto industry, the GST 2.0 reforms has been a big win. And definitely, for the buyers who have been sitting on the fence, there will be a rush, in the coming months to buy cars. Because cars are clearly affordable in any segments. Obviously, price elasticity in the small car segment is very high. So obviously we see that cars becoming more affordable, will really help buyers to come and go for a deal. But even consumers who were like looking for mid-size SUVs or bigger cars, even for them, it will be a kind of a viral situation, where you see your friends buying, a car, because the car is definitely cheaper by 10%, and 10% roughly is like 2 lakh rupees, even for a 20 lakh rupees car. So clearly, we may see a viral kind of a situation. The fence sitters, who may be looking to buy a car in next 6 months, 1 year, or 2 years. So they will clearly advance their buying decision. So clearly a big win for the consumers, and maybe for the government also, because we see a clear uplift, in the Indian auto industry. And just to put you some numbers there, in 2026, India will be one of the fastest growing car markets in the world. So I think just because of these reform.
Right.
So I think clearly, I think auto industry should be very happy today, and they have to gear up, their suppliers, their production bases, their manufacturing, the skill manpower, because next year is going to be a boom, for the Indian auto industry.
Okay. What is, as an analyst, which segment of cars do you think will see more demand now?
Yeah. So clearly, I think the focus is on SUVs. SUVs is the hottest segment and clearly an aspirational segment. And as I said, even on SUVs, the duty cut is around 10%. So customers would definitely be looking forward to SUVs. But in small car segment, which has been under pressure for almost last 7, 8 years, we have been seeing that the pressure has the mini car segment has not been growing. The small cars, the people, consumers have been moving away from the small cars. So clearly, we feel that small cars also will start. GST cut will act as a catalyst, but it may take some little time. Because we may see OEMs really gearing up. To push small cars in the industry by putting in limited editions or bringing in new styling or features in the cars.
Okay. What about the luxury cars segment? Because 40% GST on luxury cars, do you think that in any way, that segment of buyers, does it really matter that much of a tax on any product that they're purchasing?
Yeah, generally we have seen that this is an insulated segment from price hikes, from tax hikes, right? But one thing is very clear, firstly, it's not a hike, even on luxury cars, there has been a cut of 10% if I include cess, on the car. So clearly, even for luxury cars, you may have to pay 10% lower duty. But as I said, this is an insulated segment, but with a kind of opportunity, and with a lot of optimism in the country, clearly we may see buyers, really looking forward for new luxury cars, in the coming years.
Okay. How about, one of the questions that many forums in fact have is that the government may face certain revenue loss. Is auto sector likely to be one of the sectors responsible for this loss?
So, but I think what I can clearly say is, I think in S&P Global Mobility, known for the forecasting projections. So till yesterday, our forecast projections was around 4.5% growth in 2026. But now, obviously, our economists and analysts are working, but clearly we are looking forward to a high single-digit growth, close to maybe roughly around 8%. So clearly, we are talking about double the industry growth, for India in next year. So which means, you sell more cars and actually the revenue of the governments, adds up rather than, a clear shortfall. And I think this is what our finance minister has been saying yesterday, that we have to see in a more holistic way rather than seeing, it as more as a revenue loss. Obviously, there can be revenue implications because GST alone is not the driver of growth. Today India is a part of world. It is very much connected to the world, and in case if there are any distortions in terms of economic indicators or in terms of political relations or in terms of export pattern, then obviously there can be an impact on the car sales. But otherwise, GST alone should be a big driver of growth for India and also should help in terms of revenues, for the government. But obviously, we may have to see, whether it's add up, or because the cut is really big. 10% on cars is something which nobody would have expected.
I want to understand from you as an industry analyst, not particularly related to GST as such, but the Prime Minister has been talking about buying Swadeshi, buying made in India, products. When we talk about the auto industry, do you think the Indian manufacturers or the Indian cars anywhere have a financial advantage or edge over foreign-made automobiles?
Yeah, so I think clearly Make in India is not only the buzzword today. I think every consumer first is looking towards an Indian car, Indian manufacturers. It may be Mahindras or Tatas, or Maruti Suzuki. I think today, if you see, in terms of your shortlisting, because generally we have seen a consumer visit 3 to 4 OEMs, before he strikes his deal. So you will see that out of these 3 to 4 OEMs, the Indian OEMs are among this list. So clearly, I think a consumer has bent it towards, has a bent towards the Indian car manufacturers, and maybe the reason is because the kind of value they are offering, is phenomenal in terms comparison to the value, which global players are offering. And since we know that Indian consumer is very value sensitive, but clearly if you get more value in Mahindras, or Tatas, so you clearly see a rush towards that segment of that product. And now even in electric vehicles, we have seen, with Tatas giving products like Tata Curve or Tata Harrier, EV, or Mahindras giving something like B6 or B9, because they provide value. That is why there is a rush. And if you see today in the top five OEMs in India, out of them three are Indian OEMs, right? So clearly, I think Indians are winning the race, and there is something which comes from the hearts of every Indian, and they really want to drive Indian cars. But the only thing is that, but the Indian consumer is also smart, and they really run behind value. And today, Indian OEMs have been able to offer value to the consumers.
Mr. Gupta, one aspect of yesterday's reforms is obviously the GST on the final price of the car. But did any change happen in the cost of components? I mean, a B2B purchase between, let's say, an automobile supplier and an or like, for example, an auto component maker and an auto OEM. Will there be any reduction in the manufacturing of the cost of the car itself or the vehicle itself because of yesterday's reforms?
So I think we have to see it from, multiple angles. So first is like your liquidity, right? So for example, you when you are paying 28% duty, so somewhere, you're for a, let us say, for a dealer, or for a supplier, your money gets stuck, right? So maybe you get it, you get it adjusted, while your buyers pays the GST. But then somewhere, so your liquidity situation becomes normal. So in terms of parts, obviously, because now you pay lesser GST, that way. So though for net impact for suppliers will not be there, because at the end of the day, it is the end consumer, who is paying, and this duty anyway gets refunded, right? But for the supply. So overall, from suppliers' perspective, maybe yes, there are a lot of consumables which they may be buying, which they may be using. So the duties, now they may have to pay less because there is obviously a GST cut, on most of the things. So overall, I think it should be net beneficiary for everybody in the industry in one way or the other. It may be consumer, it may be anybody in the supply chain.
Now, someone who's we have a festive season coming up right now. Are there any interesting numbers you would want to share with us as to how have I mean, just purely looking at the volume of the Indian auto market, how many vehicles do we really sell every year? What is the number likely to be over the next? You already said that it's expected to be a double-digit growth. I mean, or a double the growth, not double-digit growth, but double the growth that was expected. What are the numbers like over the next about a year, 2 years for the auto industry?
Yeah. So this year, Indian car market was supposed to clock almost close to 5 million units in 2025 calendar year. And next year projections were roughly around 5.2 to 5.25 million units. But now because of GST, clearly there will be an add-on of at least 200 to 250,000 units, which is close to roughly around 3.5%. So clearly, I think industry is already big. If you want to see the what is the scale, so India is the third largest car market in the world in terms of domestic scale. But then, obviously we have a long way to go, because even today, the penetration level of cars in India is just 36 cars per 1,000 people. So still most of the people don't own cars because they were not affordable. So this is, we can say, a little, what people are saying Diwali gift, right? So it's a little step to improve the affordability of cars in India. And obviously, it will help in increasing the penetration of cars in India, because obviously more people can afford it, and because the taxes are less. And tax have always been one of the biggest bottlenecks, in terms of the growth of automotive sector.
So will it be right to say that one, it will probably a car for all dream that will come true very soon, one, and second, it could probably be a bigger car in the same budget. Will both these realities be possible with the GST reforms announced yesterday? Will that be right to say so?
Exactly. I think you are bang on. So you can, now expect a bigger car, so you can fulfill your aspiration. You can have a bigger aspiration now. And then on the other side, obviously there is a big chunk of people who were not able to afford. They were just able to dream a car. But now, many of them would be able to afford a car.
On that note, thank you very much. We'll see and wait how these reforms actually unveil on 22nd September. Would you advise people to wait till 22nd September now before buying their car?
I think everybody is smart, right? So everybody will wait till 22nd September. But by the way, there are a lot of discounts which are there in the market today. So it's just about, you really need to
Okay.
see that, which is better for you, because after 22nd September these discounts may vanish, right? So clearly, you may try to balance, like obviously if it's a good deal today, so go and strike it. I think this period is not going to come back for those, but otherwise for the vehicles where the discount was not there, so I think there is no doubt that customers should wait till after 22nd September.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gupta, for joining us. It was lovely talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great to be here. Thanks for inviting again. Thank you very much. Bye.